What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Season 5, Episode 6 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Fun and games. So, I was really hoping to try to get through 2 episodes before I did the next review of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but so much happened in this episode that I wanted to talk about that I couldn't skip it and just go on to the next one and talk about both of them together, so let's get into this episode. There are a few different storylines going on. The first one we'll talk about is probably the shortest. We see May in this episode for the first time in a couple. We saw she got captured in that one episode. I think that was that 2 episodes ago? It's been so long since I've seen it. Honestly, I don't remember how long it's been since she got captured. But we knew she got captured by the Kree. And we see in this episode the guy with the mind reading powers. He has to fight her in his little battle to prove himself. And so they're fighting, and we see May's holding her own. You know, all of this stuff. There's so much fighting going on in this episode. But she's putting up a really good fight, even though he can read her mind. She's still really making him work. He's not able to just easily block her attacks, even though he knows what she's about to do. So yeah, she's holding her own, but eventually, you know, her wound catches up with her. And so he does manage to get the staff that she has out of her hand. But we see Fitz, who has already accustomed himself to the way of life and sort of gotten to the side of Cassius and sort of like become his friend in this episode. He steps in and says, this fight bores me. Let's move on. Let's get past this. You know, who cares about them? And of course, he's like, well, you know, a life still has to be spent. And he says, well, just send the human, send her to the surface. So May appears to be on her way to Earth's surface, where we know there's a bunch of, you know, the roaches, as they call them, down there waiting to meet her. But that's the only part that we see of her in this episode. I assume either Fitz knows about the people that are on the surface, or you know, there's some sort of plan for Enoch to go and intercept her. You know, because we see him hopping onto an elevator at the end of the episode. But I don't really know what the plan is there. But he does manage to step in to save her life. And this also ends up costing the life of Ben, the telepath. We see after the fight is over, they don't even get a chance to bid on him because Cassius says he lied to me about, you know, knowing whenever Daisy lied. He lied about not knowing that she lied, and finding May was like, oh, well, he obviously didn't tell me the whole truth. And so he ends up having him killed by whatever her name is. I can't remember her name right now. But his right-hand woman, Sonara, I think, is my best guess. But anyway, so that all happens between May and Ben, and that's pretty much all we see of them. Obviously, Ben dies in this episode, and it does hit Daisy a little bit because it is her fault that he died because he covered for her, and he did believe in her, and it ended up getting him killed. Well, it's not the end of her story, because we see Simmons comes in, and she is able to talk to her now because Fitz was very clever and convinced Cassius to turn off her little chip that makes it to where she can't hear, because he says, you know, how can she serve your guests if she can't hear what they're asking for? So it was a very clever way for Fitz to get her to be able to hear. Of course, this doesn't come without a little bit of heartbreak, because he sees her for the first time and he goes up to talk to her and he just confesses how much he's missed her, and he thinks that she's just kind of like playing it cool, because he said at the beginning, you know, just play it cool, don't turn around. But of course she can't hear anything he's saying, and I'm just sitting here like, why is this so heartbreaking? But ultimately he does manage to get the chip turned off. So now she goes to give Daisy sort of a little bit of a pep talk, and so they form a little bit of a plan together, not really knowing what Fitz's plan is, which I think is pretty interesting. You know, I wouldn't say it's too, there's a part of me that's thinking, you know, their plan did coincide a little too well with what Fitz was planning to do. I don't know. It seems very bizarre that it worked out so well between them. I do think part of that is because they know each other so well that they've sort of figured what the other would do, and so it sort of figured into the plan. But yeah, it did seem a little too convenient that at the time Fitz was about to step in and take out a few people, Daisy and Gemma both decided, oh yeah, we've got our little plan too. You know, Gemma with a knife and Daisy planning to force them or quake them or whatever. So yeah, that would probably be my only thing, is that it did sort of, without them being able to communicate at all, it did seem a little bit coincidental that they worked out plan at the exact same time to all come into fruition. But yeah, we do get to the final fight where Daisy has to fight Sonara, if that's her name. And she's fighting her, ultimately knocks her down, and then she looks up at Gemma, nods. She then hits the button and then slices Casillas' neck, and I'm like, holy crap, what? So yeah, I think Casillas is dead. There's a good chance that, maybe she didn't do enough damage because I think he is Kree, pretty sure. So maybe it wasn't strong enough to really kill him. Maybe it was just enough to sort of like slice right here and then get some blood. But it looked like she did kill him. And then Fitz, shoots a couple of the guards that have the guns, and then Daisy goes to like force push Casillas' brother who's there. But then he turns the chip back on so she doesn't have the power to, and then falls down and lands pretty hard. So Fitz and Gemma then jump down and have this little conversation at the end that just had me rolling with laughter, because Fitz is just like, I'll never leave your side again. She's like, well, marry me then. He's like, of course. And then they kiss, and then Sonara wakes back up and he shoots her. And then as they're walking away with Daisy, he's just like, I did propose to you whenever Casillas had the thing in your ear you couldn't hear. She's like, oh, of course you did. He's like, no, really, I didn't. I don't know, just that little interchange there was hysterical to me. But anyway, that's about all that happens for those three characters. As far as the other side of the story goes, we see apparently it's the time of year that the Kree start bringing in children to put them through the mist and find out whether they're Inhumans or not. So we see this one kid, his name's Flint, and because he's getting so much focus, of course he's going to be Inhuman. Apparently Tess knows him very well, and so he goes through the mist with his other girl. He ends up getting Inhuman powers, but right before they can find out what he is, he suddenly disappears, and it's like, wait, what happened? Turns out Yo-Yo took him out, and I thought that was very, very clever, because it had me wondering, like, holy crap, does he have the power to disappear? Does he have the power to, like, turn invisible? Maybe he has teleportation powers? But then all of a sudden they cut to another scene and Yo-Yo's bringing him into a room. And I'm like, oh, I see how she did that. But yeah, so we find out that this kid is Inhuman, and he's scared. He doesn't know what to do. He knows that they're going to put him up for sale if they find out that he's Inhuman, or if they find out what his powers are. And so the team, Coulson realizes Yo-Yo probably had something to do with it, and so he brings everybody to where he figures she is, and they kind of talk about, okay, what's the next plan? Well, as Yo-Yo is telling telling Flint the story of how she got her powers, that's when what's-his-face, the guy that gave them their chips, I didn't even really remember this guy's name, I just know him as the douche who gave him the chips. He shows up and presses the button that gets them all magnetized up against a wall, and he's just like, oh, I'm sure Casillas is gonna love this story. And so he's just taunting them. The kid, though, you can see he's getting really scared and really frustrated at the same time because he wants to help them, but he doesn't really know how to. And we see little pebbles rising off the ground. I'm like, oh, is Superman still alive? I don't know, I thought I'd make a Batman v Superman joke here. Anyway, but yeah, apparently he has the ability to control stone. And so ultimately he starts throwing stones with his mind, and the guy's like, if you don't stop, I'll stop you. And then he forms a bunch of stones up, and the guy's just like, oh, I forgot what I was about to say because this is incredible. And then he gets his head crushed in. So, I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where if he just shot him, the show would pretty much be over because he turned the team into Casillas. So I get that he has to die to keep the team alive, but to have him have the gun up to the kid's head and say, if you don't stop, I'll stop you. And then he sees all the rocks forming into like a boulder, and he just sits there like, I don't know, I was just kind of like, that was pretty dumb. And it's not like moments like this hasn't happened in the show before, but this one kind of stood out to me because it just felt like kind of pointless. It feels like that should have been over. Like, kid, I'm going to shoot you. He shouldn't have noticed the rocks. That would have been the better way to do it. He's just, kid, you better stop right now, and looking at him as the boulders are forming behind him. Kid, I tell you what is that? And then gets hit in the head. But to just have him kind of stare stupidly at the rocks just kind of made the scene a little bit stupid. But yeah, so the team, they managed to get out of their magnetization, and so they're like, well, we need to find Tess. Well, then they go and find out that Tess is now dead. She was hung because she wouldn't give up where Flint is. yeah. So this episode killed off a lot of characters that I thought were very important, and now they're gone. The guy that gave them their chips, gone. Tess, gone. Casillas, I think, is gone. Just like, wow. So we're just killing off everybody in this episode. Okay. What's going to happen next episode? Are we going to lose, like, Mac or something? Like, please stop killing off characters. Oh, but, that is the way of how the season is going so far. It does feel like a very life or death type of situation. It feels like it's us or them type of thing. It's kind of scary. I feel like the season is not going to end with everybody making it. And I don't like that feeling. I get that you have to have that feeling of intensity, but at the same time, as a viewer and as somebody who loves these characters, I don't like the feeling. I hate it, and I want it to stop. I want them to all be okay and live happily ever after and Fitz Simmons forever. But I mean, this episode really did just keep the story going. It keeps you on your toes because you're never really sure what's going to happen next. I didn't expect them to try to break out in this episode. I assumed they're going to keep playing along a little bit. But no, Fitz and Simmons and Daisy were all just like, all right, we got this plan. Let's put it into action. Enoch has got something going on. I do like the little bit of back and forth between Fitz and Enoch. I think he's... I wouldn't say he's an interesting character. He seems kind of robotic and a little bit just kind of mysterious, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't feel like he's a super strong character, but at the same time, some of his bland delivery that is very robotic can be hysterical to see the people's reactions to it. And that's why I think having him paired up with Fitz works very, very well, because his reactions to what he says is just hysterical. Oh, that is Gemma Simmons. Would you like me to introduce you to her? Fitz is like, why would I need you to introduce me to Gemma Simmons? Like, and then at the end of it, whenever he's talking to the guys, I am a Cree, brother. I have always been Cree. And then presses the button and then shoots the guy with the gun. And he's just like, oh, I am not a person. I don't know. It kind of works for his character because his character is a little bit robotic. So I think the robotic delivery, it works. And seeing him work alongside Fitz has really worked so far. But I don't really know what the plan is for him going forward. What exactly is he doing getting on that elevator? Does that lead down to the surface, or is that leading down to the battlegrounds where Fitz and Gemma and Daisy all are? I'm not really sure. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen next. I've assumed the team is going to meet up at some point and realize, oh, Fitz, you're here, and they're all going to start working together again. It's going to be a team. But of course, there's also a part of me that feels like that would be the perfect time for the show writers just to be like, all right, now somebody dies, and now everybody's broken up again because they all just finally met up for the first time forever. I'm looking forward to seeing what they've got going next. I think there's only 2 more episodes left in this first half of the season. I think. I know episode 7 is next, and episode 8 is on tomorrow night. I can't remember if there's 8 or 9 episodes in this half of the season. I feel like there's 8 though, and so we are getting pretty close to the mid-season finale. And I'm not really sure yet where this is gonna go. Part of me feels like maybe they're gonna end this half of the season with them getting back to their own time. Maybe it's gonna end with them realizing what it was that destroyed the world. And like I said, my theory about maybe it's Thanos, maybe it'll come in. But I'm really curious to see how this half of the season is going to end, because I've seen in the past, at least with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it tends to be first half of the season is focused on one thing, and then it kind of ends a little bit with the mid-season finale. Then the first half of the second half of the season is about one thing, and then the second half of the season, like it was Ghost Rider, and then it was the LMDs, and then it was the framework. That was sort of the progression of last season. And I kind of wonder if it's going to be the future, and then maybe going back to, or maybe figuring out what it was that destroyed the world, and then trying to get back to the past and save the world. I don't know. I'm curious to see where it's going to lead next and what's going to happen in the next episode. And it's got me hooked for sure. Back to that feeling of, God, I got to watch the next episode. And that's something that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has done very well since the beginning. Well, first half of the first season was but yeah, I'm loving it so far, so hopefully you guys are too. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on this episode? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all the good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.